The hot seat this week takes us down to the coast, and we are privileged to have the Mvita Member of Parliament, the Chairman of the Public Investment Committee, Mr. Abdulswamad Nassir. Thank you so much for joining us on the hot seat.
Thank you for having me.
We are so happy that you could make the time for us. I want, as usual, as we say on this show, this is your story. So you will be telling us your story. We'd like to start from, life growing up at the coast. How was that like? And just before you get into that, you came from a very powerful political family, as it were. Your father, stalwart at the coast. So how was that like growing up in a political family?
I think I was brought up in not expecting the perks of everything else. But just to give you an example, I remember when my late father, just after I had finished school, there was that period where, between high school and whatever you're going to do next, my late father decided that he's going to be tagging me along wherever he goes. So every time he travels to Nairobi by flight, I'd have to take the bus. I started off in a public school as well in Mombasa. Went to a private school to finish my standard 8 KCP exams, and then from there I went to a national public school. So I was actually brought up in that kind of environment that, don't expect to carry on or to float in your father's wings for too long. It came, the name of Sharif Nasser came with its own responsibilities. But I think the biggest responsibilities came in after he passed away. And of course, now that we are here, there's always that lots of comparison between who you are and who your late father was. But we in different constitutional dispensations. His roles and responsibilities then were different. My roles and responsibilities now probably are different. Similar, but different in approach by virtue of what the Constitution actually mandates me right now and how it mandated him. Freedom of being able to express ourselves and so many other factors. But yes, I grew up in, it was not very easy. But I grew up being taught that being humble is the way to go.
Being humble is the way to go. And I like that you say that, because sometimes we find ourselves in situations where, rich kids, as it were, or, you come from particular families. And just before we move on from that, the humility for those kids right now that are watching that feel, it's a privilege. Is it a privilege? Is it a birthright? Do I have to act a certain way because I come from a certain family?
No, actually, you have to take the responsibility as a particular individual. You have to understand that there's so much that you can go just by your name. Then thereafter, your character moves in. I'm glad. I thank God. The people of Mvita gave me the opportunity to be able to serve them the first time. And the second time, I ended up being voted with an even larger percentage representation, or people who decided that they would like me to represent them. So I guess some of there are those who say that, he carried his father's name. But I believe that over and above that, I was definitely privileged to be the son of my father.
All right. So at what point did you take that decision to chart your life towards politics?
The school that I was in, I studied in a beautiful school, Lenana School, where it was not just about book education, but it was about general information and general, day-to-day life. So in the school library would have a whole panel, long panel, where there'd be newspapers, So they'd pin the newspaper on the library walls, and on one side would be page one. Then they would take another leaf of the newspaper, and so if you want to read, you'd have to walk. You'd walk from page one, then you scroll to page two. Then if the story continues in page 17, you'd have to walk up to page 17. So I had a lot of general knowledge, and we'd have our own debate on how things are. I guess that's where it all started, and the intrigues began from that moment.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But when I told him I want to do political science, his answer was, I think you're going to waste your time and my resources as well, because there's no better political teacher than myself. So if you want to do political science, the best thing for you to do is just follow me wherever I do, wherever I go. Listen to what I say, behave how I behave. And yeah, I think it's just something that leadership is more of a calling. You can be, I mean, we've seen people, right even in this country, we've seen people who come from very powerful names. We've seen people who come from backgrounds with huge financial resources and everything else. But some of them have been one-term members of parliament. Some of them disappear. We've had names where, as much as those names are very, very prominent, but then thereafter, after a certain person is no longer with us, then those names end up disappearing. So I think leadership is more of a calling, and there's no power more important than having people with you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So from there, you moved to the people of Mvita and asked them to give you that mandate, which they actually do. How hard was it adjusting into that life of, wow, now I am the representative?
The transition wasn't as difficult as I would have assumed it to be myself. It was something more smooth from the kind of lifestyle that I had, because we never had a private life from the beginning anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. In those years now that you have been leading the people of Mvita, what would you say are some of your highlights, your greatest work, things that you would pat yourself on the back and say, hey?
Giving people, empowering them with skills. Whether we like it or not, we have one of the highest ever unemployment rates in this country. So you need to give people, it's no longer just a fact that you have a certificate and that's enough. You have a diploma, a degree, and that is going to be enough. You now need to start equipping people with day-to-day skills. So we came up with a program called Skills Mitaani, and I'm so grateful that we've been able to turn around the lives of thousands of people on an annual basis. There's nothing that gives me greater joy when I get a message, or when I see someone on the street and they tell me that I am who I am today, and because I studied in this particular program. So we allow people to choose various vocational courses. And these range from plumbing, electrician, beauty courses, baking, you name it. It's the various courses are hundreds, and you choose yourself. We allow you to actually, from a panel of institutions that we know that these are genuine institutions. So we allow you to choose what is the kind of skill that you feel is good for you, and we pay up to 60%. You pay up to 40%. And we're now taking it even further. We want to see a way of how we're going to now be able to incorporate this into amalgamating skills with job opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. As a leader as well, and even as a person, you're very passionate about security, and particularly security at the coast. And I want to give you one incident where you have actually wept in public. How personal is this, and what is not being done enough to just curb the insecurity?
I think that particular time was, I come from a constituency, and I was brought up as well believing that everyone is equal. And it's for that reason when there was an attack in in Peketoni area of Lamu. I remember, we didn't. I don't know where we got that adrenaline rush that we had to go and help the people who are there. But with the then area member of parliament, within literally hours, because we had to charter a plane, and for one reason, terrorism has hit us in such a way that there was a time when people felt that this is actually an Islamic issue. So there was that, and we had to come and make sure that this is not an Islamic issue. So you can imagine when I went to the area of Mpeketoni, it was not easy seeing wounds that are still very, very fresh, like literally very, very fresh. We had to hold some body parts using duct tape. We were there with the then area member of parliament, and it's unfortunate, but then the security forces took a bit of time till they were able to come. So much harm had already been done. When the Garissa University incident happened, I personally went all the way to Kikuyu to actually bury someone who was affected by that. When there was, a terror threat in so many other parts, there was a time that there was a grenade that had actually been found in an area in Likoni. I went there not for any other reason, but to give that feeling that we are all one. I come from a constituency that is so cosmopolitan. I actually pride myself in that, and I say this to my colleagues as well in Parliament. I tell them that there's no one who is more blessed than myself, because I come from a constituency where we're not homogeneous in nature. We're very cosmopolitan. There's no one who can say that they can be able to stand there because of a certain tribe, because of a certain creed, race, or anything else. We're so, and even if you look at the demographics and you look at the pattern of how people voted for me, there's no one who can say that they did not vote for me. So I had to showcase that, because someone who's living in Mvita has a relative who's in Nyeri. Someone who's living in Mvita has someone who is in Lamu. Someone who's living in Mvita has someone or the other. I actually believe like I'm at the heart of the whole country. Probably, other than the CBD of Nairobi, Mvita constituency is one of the highest. So it was important, because if someone sneezes, I had to look for a handkerchief. It was important for people to realize, and I think at that particular moment when all these insecurities were so high, it was a hitting part in me.
Moment, right? Do you feel there are gaps in efforts towards dealing with these insecurity issues?
There are two ways that this can actually be seen. Of course, when you look at it, there have been reports from human rights organizations that the police is probably overstepping its mandate. There are those who believe that the police is literally getting tired of taking people to court back and forth. But unless we live and accept that we are in a democratic society that has a constitution, then there's no difference between us and the banana republic. As hard as it is, but if we follow the law to the letter, and I always say this, wherever there's a problem, I've been on record, wherever there's a problem, if the police feel that they have a problem in fighting crime in any way, because of a lacuna in law, because the laws are probably lenient or whatever it is, there's always a way to bring those laws back to Parliament, get them changed, instead of them actually saying that they want to change, they want to go beyond what they're meant to do. At the same time, I do believe there's some pretty good police officers out there. Pretty good police officers. I mean, we've seen it. It's unfortunately that as Kenyans, it's who we are. We love pressing the send button on what is, one, information that has not been verified, two, information that is malicious, three information that gives people more that gasp and ow. So, over and above, just there are good stories out there of some police officers who've made some great impact. I mean, you can imagine how many cases of evil they've been able to stop before it actually before it happened. But those are not remembered as much as when it does happen.
Absolutely true. But something also related to crime and insecurity is the drug menace at the coast. What is not happening?
It's normal. There is what is the demand and the supply. Now, when the demand is not going to be there, the supply is not going to be there. So demand reduction is what society can be able to do by teaching the younger generation that drugs are not good for you. Talking to people who are already using to try and get them to reduce the curve. To try so many other ways out there. We came up with huge campaigns and we still do them. That is now regarding the demand reduction. And then now there's the supply reduction. Supply reduction is totally 100% something that the security forces can only be able to do. There's a limit of how much the public can physically get involved to uproot drug sellers and things like that. So I do not want to call it that we have porous borders. It is not just the borders alone. It is the fact that they feel that there was a conducive environment for people to actually accept that drug use was okay. So the drug sellers continued being there. Do we have a problem? Yes, we do have a problem. In fact, but I think right now awareness has actually assisted. The advent of social media to be able to spread the negativities that are currently there. We have a program where we do school diaries, and every child is given a school diary. One of the things that we do is to try and get that communication between parent and teacher. And inside there's information as well on the harms of drugs and everything. We have peer counselors who go to schools and to talk about the issue of drugs and everything else. Even over and above that as well, I remember when we first were talking about the needle and syringe exchange program. Basically, there was a time where a huge percentage of injecting drug users were very high in HIV status. So the only way out, we had to tell people that, look, these people are already using drugs. They're going to share. The chances of them infecting each other with hepatitis, with HIV and other transmittable diseases is way, way high. So as there's a drop-in center where they can be able to get another syringe, but at the same time, they're then being counseled to be able to stop this, because a drug user is a person who in many cases has a wife. If it's a female, they have a husband. Some of them have multiple male partners. So it was a problem. And I think it was introduced at a very, very critical time. At least the rate of HIV went down. The county of Mombasa is one of the first areas in the whole of Africa to actually introduce the methadone program, which is a substitute for heroin. But the only difference is that it is clinically given to you. That means there's a doctor who actually gives you a certain dose, not through injection, but then, the effect is probably more or less the same. And then it's given to you in a clinical manner, so you don't have to start relying on heroin. And we've seen many people actually go back. Through Reach Out as well, we've come up with campaigns where we economically and spiritually empower those who have been able to quit that particular life. And we're using the same people as well now to go back and talk to society, the younger generation, that this is something that is not right.
But Mheshimiwa, some critics would argue that even as leaders, some are said to even be protecting these people who are making it so accessible and therefore fueling, this drug menace that is there.
It is always said over and over and over and over that there are certain people who are actually involved in drugs. I mean, I do some talk shows on the FM stations, and you get someone who says that, but they're known. First of all, I mean, if you know them, why don't you say who they are? Mm-hmm. If you feel that you're afraid to say who they are in public domain, you don't want your name to be known, there are ways that you can actually be able to say who so-and-so is. But even over and above everything else, I mean, if someone who's selling drugs is someone who is in a certain community, a certain area, the first respondents would be the neighborhood itself. The problem we've been having is that as a society, we slowly, and unless we accept where we are, we cannot be able to push forward to where we want to go. As a society, then this was something that was considered, it is normal.
And that is actually now where the problem is.
I've actually talked to the police about this as well. And I told them, do you know that there's a law in Kenya called, Maeneo? You can actually be arrested, and you're told that you were arrested in an area, and when they say Maeneo, means that an environment or the area that actually sells or people solicit for drugs, or they solicit for sexual trade or something. So, and I asked this question to the then CS, and I said, but if you know that this is Maeneo, why didn't you stop it? Because constitutionally, the Bill of Rights gives you a right to be able to move wherever you want. So first of all, that law itself, we're actually in the process of drafting those particular amendments. That law itself is unconstitutional. It needs to be changed. And the reason it needs to be changed is you cannot arrest someone on the precincts that he was caught in an area that is deemed to be an area that sells. Why don't you stop that area from actually that happening? So yes, we've been having a challenge with the police force. Every time we get a different regime, we see swiping changes. And then thereafter, things level down again. But I think most important is, if we do get these swiping changes, the most important thing is we need to empower the society to say no. There's nothing larger, there's nothing more powerful than the people power. If society says no, no one can say yes. And this happened before in Mombasa. We've had cases where people have been uprooted from their houses. It's happened. It's happened before, where people said enough is enough. We don't want so-and-so in our area. And the people had to move, because you could not be able to compete with the masses who, and you can't even say that it is not true, because they all know that it is true. So I think as much as we need to push the police force, society as well has to say no.
There has to be a concerted effort towards this fight. On that, let's talk about holding people to account. Even as you know, we want a society to stand up and basically get into this fight. And you are the chair of PIC. Holding public entities to account, how difficult is that?
It's not easy. I can assure you it's not easy. Corruption always bites back. But I'm glad. I mean, we've come up with reports that have been very, very solid in nature. We currently have a report on the floor of the House that actually says, different individuals need to be held accountable for whatever ills that happened during their reign. We've even had situations where we've saved state corporations, not millions, billions, because we were able to see something is not right here. We currently, of course, have instructed the Office of the Auditor General. We want to come up with a comprehensive special audit on the issue of KEMSA, to hold these people accountable by saying that this is the proof that is there, instead of us just shouting on public platforms. It's good to shout on public platform. Trust me, there's nothing wrong. It's good to picket. I actually encourage I truly encourage people to come out and express their views. It's in the Bill of Rights. Everyone has a right to be able to picket. Everyone has a right to be able to say that this is wrong. But at the same time, let's not just speak only. Let's speak and act. And the only way that we can be able to act is through constitutional offices. There's no other way. I mean, I can come up and just accuse so and so, but unless we take the whole process, as tiring as it is, but there's a reason why that burden has been left on the shoulders of certain individuals. You know, there's a reason for everything, and I think the reason is because we can be able to take the challenge. So currently we are looking at the KEMSA matters, and I think we are hoping that the Office of the Auditor General will produce those reports early enough. We're hoping to be able to get input from everyone. I've said this as well, that this time round, we just don't want to take input just from, you know, even if you are just a person out there on the street, the Constitution of Kenya allows you as a Kenyan to petition Parliament. As long as you have your identity card, you can actually petition Parliament. So you can actually write to Parliament and say that I have this and this. We've had a lot of cases, by the way, and I want to applaud such kind of Kenyans who don't just take it to just social media alone. I want to applaud those kind of Kenyans who actually write to Parliament, and those requests come to the various committees that the Speaker through the standing orders feels that this should go to this and this committee. We've had cases even in Public Investment Committee where a Kenyan comes and says that you know, there's this and this going on, and whistleblowers, you know, and we don't have to say it out in the open who told us this, but even incognito, you can be able to make that change.
Do you feel, from where you sit, is there cohesion or is there frustration between you know, the different arms of government and these state agencies? Because some people would argue one too many times, reports will be done, say hold people to account, reports go to the shelves.
Well, at the same time, there are reports that are acted upon. It's not just one side of it. I think one of the things that we have proposed as well is we need to provide more facilities and more funding and more resources to the offices that are meant to implement this. We need to come up with more sources and funding to the EACC. We need to give more resources to the DCI. We need to give more resources to the Office of the Auditor General. We even right now, I think we need to give more resources as well to the Office of the Attorney General, because you know, we get some contracts that are done that are so swayed towards a contractor. You know, if forget about anything else, I mean, corruption has so many tail ends. It's not just the fact that you took a bribe and that is it. It has so many tail ends. I mean, if you look at our report that we tabled, you'll actually see how much money we are losing on interest alone. It's in billions. Just the amount of money that we're losing just in interest because contracts are swayed towards a contractor. You know, you fail to pay at a certain time.
And still on Parliament, Kenyans have been treated to, I don't want to call it a fiasco, over the past couple of weeks, and this is on revenue allocation in that debate. What is your take on that? Because coming from the coast, some of the counties in the coast were actually set to lose. What is your take on that?
What is the GDP input? You know, what is it that Mombasa contributes to this country's growth? And what is it in terms of percentage? If we want to argue in that way, then why don't we come up and say that, you know what, because we are number 2, we should be getting a certain percentage for every revenue that we, you know, because of our natural resources, because of our beaches, because of our port, because of everything else. I mean, if we look at it in that angle, you know, we're not going to go anywhere. As a country, we're going to continuously go down the drain. And I think centers need to be more level-headed, in the kind of approach. As you want to grow, don't take someone down. Grow and give a hand for someone else to grow as well. All right? A candle does not lose its light by lighting another candle. So don't try and diminish someone else, because tomorrow you're going to need that other person as well. And this is what makes up this beautiful country.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Speaking of Pats, what is next for you in your political path? Because we have 2 years to go before, we go to the next general election.
Well, I've had a lot of comments, a lot of people talking about going for the governorship position. There's no doubt about that. But I think, as I said, leadership is a calling. And for me, if the calling is to go for the governor's position, then I will go for the governor's position. There's no doubt at all.
Right now, has the calling not come?
Well, I think the calling actually comes in every day, every single day. And I get this, like when I say every day, I mean every single day. I either through radio stations, through either social media or through messages through me directly. Yes, I've had a large amount of people who have asked me to vie for the governor's position. I think that let us have soberness in everything that we do. What is most important is Mombasa. To me, I think Mombasa and the people of Mombasa and the growth of the city that I was born in, raised in, and I love so much is what is most important. So eventually, everyone's going to put their cards on the table and say that this is what I am capable of. This is what my CV speaks of me. This is what I have been able to stand up for. This is me not swaying on principles that I have believed in. And thereafter, give them my master plan of what I believe that I should be able to continue from my predecessor, who would be Hassan Ali Joho, and let the people be able to decide on that.
Do you have his support? Do you have the support of the incumbent governor?
That would be a good question to ask him. But I believe he believes in what I stand for. I believe he believes in continuity, and there's no way that you can be able to have positive continuity without there being some form of synchrony between yourselves. You can't have an abrupt. I'll give you an example. This is actually something that I saw when I was looking at my day-to-day books of the KEMSA. There was a time that the purchase of drugs by counties dropped drastically. So we had to query what happened. And these are drugs that are staying in your warehouses. There must be something not right. And what actually transpired was, because there was change of leadership and guard in the county governments, those who came in next started by not caring about the people, but caring about who is going to be in charge of what. So, people decided we want to change those who are in health. Doctors were not sure about their fate. These ones were not sure about this. So for growth to happen, you need to have a bit of continuity, and I think that is the way to go. He believes in what I stand for. I believe in what he stands for. We both believe that there are many times that we should just many things that we can be able to do, and we sit down and talk.
Mm-hmm. The counties at the coast, are some of the ones that both sides of the divide, I think, are always very interested in. And there were talks, and it's on record, that as leaders of the coast, you wanted to come together and form one united front. Is this still something that is happening? Is it on?
I have never had a situation where my party leader, before handshake or even after handshake, to come to me and tell me, don't do this or do this. This is the kind of leeway that the party is, do your job. That is what is most important. Do your job. make this party proud, make the people who elected you proud, make the country proud that we have a system that can actually work. So I don't understand this notion that we can speak in one voice, yes, on the interests and the needs of the people. I mean, I'll give you an example. I sit in the Public Investment Committee, but on my own capacity as a member of Parliament for Mvita, I have voted against some of very, very major government bills. One of them being the amendment to the Merchant Shipping Act, which was talking about privatization of the port. I've been on record, and I mean, I was not told that, because of the handshake or this or that. I stood for what people wanted me to stand for. I've stood, as a matter of fact, all. When I say all, I mean each and every one of those issues that have been discussed in the National Assembly on the issues of SGR have been courtesy of myself. And as a matter of fact, I sit with my party leader and I express where our concerns are, that I need to stand on this and this, and not once have I been told that, ODM is very dictatorial or anything like that. So everyone is entitled. Everyone has a right to choose whichever path that they want. But most important, we need to be united on the need of the people.
But even on that point for the SGR Mheshimiwa, one side you argue development, but the other, there was this big headache of displacement of families.
It's not even displacement of families. It's this, and I'm glad. The last time that I raised this in Parliament, and the Speaker made a ruling that the Transport Committee needs to table a report to permanently sort this out. We support growth, but most important, that growth should not be hindering a certain region of this country. Growth should be, as a matter of fact, if anything else, the first people that should be able to benefit are the people from where it comes from. Then let the fruits of all these other things benefit, each and every other area, but not a certain area benefiting more at the expense of others losing. And facts and figures don't lie. Facts and figures don't lie. There's been studies that have been done. So much has already been shown to actually prove that what we're saying is the way it is.
Is the way it is. All right, so I want us to wind down, but I can't do this interview without bringing this up. You look very good.
Thank you.
Very, very good.
Asante.
This transformation,
Yes.
Where did it come from?
Actually, I was with my friend, the governor, Hassan Ali Joe. We'd gone on a trip. I was out of the country with him. And I just had this adrenaline thing in me. And I said, I actually want to skydive. And I remember we called and we were told that it is impossible to get a booking right now. Because I really wanted to see the skyline and everything. And he made some calls, and one of his friends managed to get me a slot. And it hit me hard when I was actually told, because I was 130 kilos. And it hit me really, really hard. I was told, we're ready, but you know what? You're going to defy gravity. There's no way you can be up on that parachute. And that hit me hard. And I started, in fact, I started immediately. It just hit me. I said, I didn't know what I was doing at that time. I felt that eating rice was bad, eating chapati was good. I just want to tell everyone, I'm not a specialist or anything. I took advice as well on how to do this. But at least, and once you see changes, then it becomes a lifestyle. I train. Don't listen to people that there's this medication. Don't listen to people that there's this herbal formula. I know my picture has been used by a lot of people that, that I use their products. No, I did not use any of your products. I simply train. I train at least sometimes up to 5 to 6 times a week. And I feel fresh, I feel good. I can be able to actually take on my day-to-day duties even more. And it's worked well for me.
So as long as you push yourself and you push yourself, you see results completely.
Yeah, the first 3 months become a headache because, you like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm not seeing any changes. But then after that, it becomes, you become, you see the differences when you now need to have to change your wardrobe.
Mm-hmm. Or you change your wardrobe and then you go home. Does the family go like, whoa, what is happening?
Yeah, but I think they're kind of used to me right now with the changes that I've been able to do. I actually did, I took my daughter, my dream of actually doing skydiving got into reality. Casually one time, my daughter mentioned to me that she'd really want to do that. So on her birthday, I actually surprised her and I said, I took her to Diani, and she didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but it was something that I was able to do.
Beautiful. Your father was in politics. You're now in politics. Are they looking at you like, hey, is this a trend? Is this where we're headed?
Like I said, leadership is a calling.
It's a calling.
And I think growing up, I was more of the quiet one. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I was very, very quiet when growing up. I think the courage to be able to speak even in front of people started when I was in high school. I'd be in the drama classes, the debate teams and everything. But I never imagined at one moment that I would actually be able to hold the microphone and get thousands of people to be pin drop silent and listen to what it is that I say. I never imagined that would happen. So I don't know about my kids. I don't know what the future holds for them. But what I do know is that I'd prefer to support them in the path that they choose, and not for me to choose a path for them.
How's it like with the political side of you and now being a family man? How's that for you?
It's not easy, but I think it's not easy at all. There's a lot of times where I'm meant to be somewhere else, and something pops up, people decide to still at KEMSA, so you have to make sure that you're going to be able to do your parliamentary duties. But I think ultimately, even wherever they are, they're proud of what it is that I do for the country.
Mm-hmm. And you seem to be very passionate also about children. You run initiatives.
Yes, I do.
For children, and like I said, you're very passionate about education. What keeps you going? What's your motivation?
I think that the thought of the generation that is coming being better. There are two ways to be able to fight any vice. One is to try and change everyone, which is quite difficult. You just can't. It's not a switch. You can't just switch it on and off. Then two, there's that element of the new generation that is coming up, from the kids who are currently in nursery, in primary, who are coming up. They're the ones that are going to bring the much needed change that we need. A society does not change unless we have a change of thinking, a change of perception by a whole generation. So that is what I'm actually targeting.
Mm-hmm. All right. So from insecurity to drugs to life in politics to family to education, I want you to look at, this is your camera, and for the youth in this country, those who are looking at you and probably want to be in your position one day, but they're so frustrated right now. We have COVID, loss of jobs, people don't even know what to eat. What is your message to the youth?
First of all, this is a lesson that I'm giving you that I was taught by my late father. If you feel that you don't have shoes, there's someone out there who doesn't have feet. if you feel that you haven't had breakfast or lunch or dinner, there's someone who's been starving. And from a spiritual level to just a one-on-one, whatever it is that is there, God does not place a burden on someone who cannot be able to carry it. So times are tough for everyone. The question is how you're going to be able to handle yourself. The same boiling water that softens potato is the same boiling water that hardens an egg. Are you going to be tougher from your challenges, or are you going to be softer? This is my message.
Beautiful way to wrap up.
Thank you very much.
This week's hot seat. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. Wish you all the very best, even in your endeavors. I hope finally when you decide if you're announcing
we'll be
to run for
together.
Governor, you do it on the hot seat.
Oh yes, we will.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very much.
And we'll see you guys next week on Sunday. God bless.
Asante.
Asante sana.